Alright folks, so it's probably been about a year, maybe 2 years, since I promised to make the extended Witch Elf video, and really videos, to continue to go through and educate people on how to properly play the Witch Elf. And I think the reason I got hung up and didn't want to do it is because I was focusing on perfection, like a bunch of extra recording elements, whatever. And that demotivated me. I also was playing ranked pretty heavily at the time, and if you don't know the pain of solo queue ranked, good for you, because it probably shaved about 5 years off of my life. That being said, today, I'm not going to shoot for perfection. All right, so let's just put that out there. There will probably be things I forget to mention. I don't have a script in front of me. There will probably be things you don't agree with, and that's okay. My goal with this is to very simply walk through each of what I would call the core Witch Elf builds. And of course, you can alter minor things about each of these builds to your own preferred playstyle. That is okay. The best thing about a game like Warhammer is there probably is no best build for every given situation. So I am just going to give you some good builds, and you can decide for yourself which of those you think are the best, or not. It does not matter. I am trying to help people, and that's the goal of this video. So, with that being said, let's just dive right into it. I think the best place to start, I was trying to think through, like, where is the best place to start? That is probably going through my build. So the first build we're going to cover today is Ruthless Assault. And not even today, just in this video. We're going to cover Ruthless Assault. We're going to look at a couple variations of Ruthless Assault and talk about it. So I'm just going to pot up here so you all can see what this actually looks like. And I mean, I might even go through all this. I guess we'll see how I feel as we get going. So the first thing to keep in mind is this build is very min-maxed. As you can see, I am right at the strength cap. I am at 8k wounds, a pretty decent initiative, no toughness, which is pretty typical. Melee, this is without a talisman slot, so if you put a talisman into your triumphant life shard, or whatever life shard, or it's not life shard, whatever jewelry third slot piece you have, if you put a talisman into that, you can get 4% more critical hit bonus. Right now I'm at 34%, but the max here is 38%. And I'm not going to go through each and every one of these things. I don't think that's a good use of time. But let's look at the build itself. So the best in slot event accessory is, unfortunately, the ranked accessory. So the ranked accessory is about 2 times as good as the normal event accessory. So with this ranked event accessory, which is needed to build the build that I'm showing, you'll get 24 to strength instead of 12. Warlord 2-piece, so 2-piece Warlord. Why? Well, the helmet gives 2% melee critical hit chance. Overall, pretty good. The chest piece is one of the better chest pieces in that you have that 80 hit points regen. So quite a powerful 2 pieces of armor, and you get a massive plus 75 to strength, which allows you to helps you to remove brute force as one of your tactics down here. So we'll get to that in a second. Sovereign 5-piece of the melee DPS Sovereign. So you have the shoulders, you have the back piece, the gloves, the boots, and the life shard. And within these, you don't actually need all plus 24 strength talismans to do this build. I think a few of my pieces of gear only have plus 23s, but I'll go over top of each of these so you can see sort of what I have put into them if you are trying to mimic this exactly the way that I have it. And then in addition to that, we have 2 pieces of Triumphant. And the reason we use the Triumphant Vial Cord is because of the melee power on this this belt. So at strength cap, which is 1050, it is better to stack melee DPS. And by that, I mean melee power, right? So if you come into your melee, you come into, I think it's weapon DPS. Oh no, damage bonus is damage bonus. You can see in here plus melee power. And at the point at which you hit strength cap, you actually get more DPS from melee power than you do additional strength. So it's better to stack additional melee power. So our belt here is, I think, the best belt you can get for that. And then in addition to that, to get that plus 71 strength, you have to have the triumphant life shard, which I know is probably, of all this setup, this is probably the most painful to acquire, because you either need to play a lot of ranked, which is just not doable for most people, or grind like 10,000 Warcrest. So do keep that in mind. There are alternatives to this build where you can get close. You know, you don't have to get 1050 strength. You don't have to get as much melee power as possible, but I'm showing you what I consider to be the best of the best for this type of setup. So then, with the Genesis, this is, I think, everybody's go-to Genesis Remnant. You get a ton of wounds, a ton of strength, a ton of resistances. Great. Genesis aspect of the warrior gives you melee power and initiative. So this is like the defensive Genesis. And if you don't have the Triumphant Medal of Brawn and you only have a Medal of Brawn, you can actually just move this out and switch it with the Genesis Fragment, and you will still hit that 1050 strength cap, even without the Triumphant Medal of Brawn. So just keep that in mind. You have options here to try to hit your strength cap. It's not, again, you don't have to prioritize melee power if you're not best in slot. Always prioritize strength over melee power if you are under your strength cap. Alright, I feel like I talked about that enough. What else do I want to show here? Make sure you get your little spicy troll mushroom. This is 80, basically a free 80 hit points every 4 seconds. Doesn't seem like a lot, but then on top of your Warlord Corset, it's actually 160 now. Hit points every 4 seconds, 40 a second, right? So actually it does add up in an extended fight. In a 10-second fight, you get 400 hit points. So you effectively have 8,400 hit points. Bloodlord, pretty standard to run one of these. You get 5% more damage done total, but it does reduce your toughness and armor, which the Witch Elves don't really have any anyways, so what does it matter? The answer to that is not much, especially with this type of like glass cannon-y build. You also get melee power on this and some initiative. And then Fortress Blood Drinker, you get a pretty fat critical hit chance. Nice little Concussion X is actually a pretty good secondary effect. So that's really it. That's really it as far as the build goes. Welcome to ask me questions about it. You're welcome to provide alternatives, because I know there are alternatives to this. This again is just, in my opinion, the most min-maxy build you can do for Ruthless Assault specifically. So now let's go ahead and get going, because I don't even know how long has this been. 8 minutes? Yeah, we're probably looking like a 15-minute video for this. So let's go ahead and get into this. Hopefully this will go a little bit more quickly now that we are past sort of that setup. I'm going to respecialize here so we can walk through this together. First and foremost, your free 2 tactics that you should be using are flanking. It's sort of the Witch Elf go-to. And, excuse me, Frenzied Mayhem. So Frenzied Mayhem, very good on Ruthless Assault. So if you look at Ruthless Assault just with a flat, no mastery points spent, it's about 2,800 damage on a 5 stack of Bloodlust, and you can add 25% to that with this tactic. So it's a huge amount of burst potential, which is what this build, as you'll see, is sort of going for. So let's start building it out. So the first thing, we'll actually start on Path of Treachery, and I'm going to go all the way up. And again, this is just one variant of the Path of Treachery build. I would consider this like the burst build. So this is you come out of stealth and you try to kill somebody, right? Like that's what this is about. So grab Masterful Treachery, and what that does is basically when you come out of stealth with one of your openers, and you can see them listed there, you get 15% more damage for 10 seconds. That's a lot, right? Like, that's a lot of time. It's enough, basically, for most fights. And it's a lot of damage. It's a lot of damage. So we're going to grab that. We're going to grab Increased Pain. And that's where we'll start. So this is sort of your glass cannon. Open up from invisibility. Try to kill somebody as quickly as possible. Build. Really fun if you're running with a bunch of Witch Elves. You're going to go ahead and grab Heart Seeker. And we'll go through like some different rotations in a little bit. Go ahead and grab Elixir of the Cauldron. If you're not using Cauldron, I'd highly recommend it. It is extremely good. So what Cauldron does is make you immune basically to all spells for 7 seconds. So you will disrupt pretty much everything. And that means, you know, if a Bright Wizard or somebody is attacking you out of stealth and you're trying to go into stealth, you can pop this, and then, like, let's say you have your M1, you can turn around to face the meleeers, and you could be literally standing in front of a whole warband of people and be able to go stealth right in front of them because they won't be able to hit you to disrupt you going invisible. So that is very important in my opinion. All of our Witch Elves, if they're going into this build, always pick up Elixir of the Cauldron. Next, we will go up to Elixir of Insane Power. We're going to grab that. We'll explain that in a second. We're going to get Pierce Armor, which is really the hardest hitting ability I think a Witch Elf has. And then we're just going to go up the rest of the Path of Carnage tree from there because we already have filled up our tactics. I will show a different build in a second for Bleeding Edge. But again, I don't want this this poor recording to go on too long. I think it's probably going to go. Whatever. All right, so let's then walk through what we have done so far. We have Flanking, we have Frenzied Mayhem, we have Increased Pain for the extra 50% more damage, we have Masterful Treachery for the burst damage upon opening. We have on the rotations, Envenom Blade, you don't really use this much. You really would only use this if you were trying to kill a regen tank that you just simply could not bring down otherwise. And this is because this does corporeal damage instead of, corporeal damage instead of like just normal melee damage. So this is really good against high armored targets. I'm not going to get into all that today. Maybe when we do the Witch Brew video, it'll be more relevant. So we'll save it for the Witch Brew video. Racking Pains is honestly a great opener. The reason it's a great opener for your first or second ability. As one, it does a ton of damage, corporeal damage, which again, people tend to be able to resist less. It's over a long amount of time, but it's still a lot of damage for, basically an insta-cast ability. And then it also reduces weapon skill and toughness for 21 seconds by 75. That is pretty substantial. It's a long time, too, especially if you're playing like in a small group. Excellent ability. To make sure you always have on somebody. So that's Racking Pains. Agonizing Wound, this plays with flanking, so if you are behind your target, you will completely ignore their armor. A sort of a cheat to make sure you are behind your target is using Heart Seeker. So with Heart Seeker, your target must be facing away from you for this ability to become active. You can sort of, you can make sure you're behind somebody by glancing down to make sure that Heart Seeker is actually active, and that's a pretty good indicator that you're behind them. Pierce Armor, Savage Attack, I've hit 2Ks easily on pretty much any class with Pierce Armor. The reason is because it ignores all armor upon damaging somebody. And this also increases your weapon skill by 111 for 20 seconds. So a ton of time too. In fact, the cooldown's only 10 seconds, so you should basically always have over 100 additional weapon skill if you're using your rotations correctly. Heartseeker knockdown, won't spend too much time on that, maybe in a little bit. Ruthless Assault, again, this is your big finisher. Once you get to 5 Bloodlust and you are pretty confident you won't be knocked down or interrupted, you should pop this. Shadow of Death, this is more of just like a meme ability where when you kill somebody, you can prevent them from being resurrected. Mainly used to like tilt people. Throat Slitter, so you would use Throat Slitter on casters if like Heartseeker was on cooldown, because it is quite a long cooldown, and you want it to basically silence somebody, because it's almost as good as knocking them down, right? So Throat Slitter you sort of interchange with Heartseeker, or if like that person's really good at staying in front of you and you still want to sort of disable them for 3 seconds and it's a caster, you can use this. Sever Limb is also similar. Sever Limb I need to use more. A really good ability. It is basically a 4-second disable for a melee class, and quite good if you can get it off. So if you are able to get Sever Limb during a fight, it honestly is probably better to use than either of these two against a melee or ranged class. You have Kiss of Agony, Kiss of Death, Kiss of Betrayal. The short story here is that for the most part you should sit on Kiss of Betrayal for that action point drain. If you want to go full deeps, you could do Kiss of Agony, because that's what that is. If you're running with a couple Witch Elves, one of you should be on Kiss of Death pretty much always, because this really affects healers negatively and helps you kill them faster. Again, I'm not going to spend too much time going into this. You can read the ability here to get the most of it. But the very best Witch Elves, like while you're invisible, I mean, I'll just show this, I guess. Like while you're invisible, right, you should switch to the appropriate kiss for what you are about to do, right? So if you're about to open on a healer, switch to Kiss of Death, get that on them, and then if you're really good, once you see this on them, switch to either your big damn ability, or if it's a melee class, right, switch to Kiss of Betrayal and try to drain their action points. While we're in here, I guess we can cover some of this. So Enfeebling Strike is typically like a pretty safe go-to if you're not that good at thinking through a lot of different things in a given situation, because this is already a lot, right? Like you're already thinking about a lot of stuff when you're about to open on somebody. But if you want to kind of cut back on that mental bandwidth, and I used to do this, honestly, like just put Enfeebling Strike across your whole bar here and just honestly use that, and maybe Shadow Leap if you ever need to close a distance on somebody. But really what you should be doing is that, like, if you're opening on a caster, so let's say you're opening on a healer in this case, because that was the example we used earlier, and I'm not going to go through all these scenarios, we'll just use this healer scenario. You would open with, you would switch to Kiss of Death, you would open with the magic damaging, and it just disappeared, so I can't show it to you, unfortunately, and I don't think I can see it. Yeah, until we go invisible again, but I'll show you in a second. But basically, right, so we're invisible, we're doing our thing, blah, blah, blah. We run up to a healer, we're like, oh, hey there, healer. We switch to Kiss of Death, and then we open, God, this cooldown dude kills me. And then we'll open with, Treacherous Assault, and what this will do is every time they cast a magic ability for the next 15 seconds, they will take a large amount of corporeal damage. And as we spoke about earlier, all these that deal corporeal damage are quite good. And if you notice, this does a large amount of damage. This does 241 damage. Vehement Blades is the melee version of that, 177 with this build, and the Enfeebling Strike is 77. But this can add up pretty quickly, right? If you're like, I don't know, maybe fighting a white lion who likes to move a lot, Enfeebling Strike is always a safe bet. And even healers oftentimes run away, right? Like Archmages, Bright Wizards, they try to get away from you. So that's why Enfeebling Strike is always a pretty safe bet. All right. I feel like I spent way too long on that. Hopefully it was helpful. I don't know. Fleet-footed. These are sort of your big globals, right? Fleet-footed, so Bright Wizard sort of entraps you. You can throw on Fleet-footed. Archmage slows you down. Throw on Fleet-footed. And you can break those root snares and a lot of slows from sort of inhibiting you. Fainted positioning. This is, if you're invisible. I'm trying to like bake a little bit of the rotation in here, but maybe we'll just save the rotation for, we'll go to a practice dummy or something in a second. Fainted positioning, it just basically makes your agonizing wound and some of your other positional abilities not require you to be in that proper position. So really, if you're opening behind somebody, there's no need to hit this at the start. But honestly, you might as well. It's not like it's going to affect the fight that much. Like some folks try to min-max this like way too much. Like at the end of the day, just make sure you're using it, and you're probably already better than 80% of people as long as you're consistently using it. Elixir of Same Power, this is your big opener here. So when you pop this, you just outright ignore 50% of your opponent's armor with all of your attacks. And the big benefit here is with 7 seconds on this, you are able to get to Ruthless Assault in your rotation before this runs out, so that your Ruthless Assault procs alongside Elixir of Insane Power. And then Elixir of the Cauldron we talked about. This is, again, 100% magic disruption, so this is good to use if it's off cooldown and you're trying to escape. The liniment I use is 60 strength and 50 melee power because, again, you want to pump melee power once you've hit your strength cap, and then any armor pot that you can get a hold to is fine. I'm a cheap little boy, so I use some of the less expensive armor pots. And then let's talk about Renown. So I don't know, I guess the easiest thing is just to build this together, right? So let's just build this together. First and foremost, let's find Opportunist, so you want to max that out. This increases your total critical hit chance by 14%, absolutely huge. The next thing, and this has changed over time, there might be more meta ways to do this, but I still use Feudal Strikes. And I actually take that all the way to 3, and that reduces your chance to be critically hit by 15%. And again, if you notice, we have a pretty high amount of initiative. So on top of 3 Feudal Strikes and approaching 400 initiative, Witch Elf actually has pretty good defense against critical hits, more than maybe some people think. And then the last thing we do, because if you notice our strength, we are no longer at our strength cap, is we will go find Might, and we will pump that up a couple times right until we hit 1050. And then for my own sort of obsessive compulsive disorder, we look up here and we're just under 8,000. So I like to throw 1 point in Vigor, although arguably there are better things to throw this in, like Parry, but it bothers me being so close to 8,000 and not hitting 8,000. All right. Ooh, we are moving. We are moving. So that is, that is the whole build set up. And this is Beast Lord. I forgot to cover that. Throw Beast Lord in here. While we're walking to a dummy, let's cover some of this other stuff. So we have, Flea down here. I actually don't keybind Flea. Because I find myself, how about that? I find myself using Flea sometimes reflexively, and although I'm a big proponent of using your keyboard and not your mouse to go through your buttons if you really want to be good at the game, I actually do force myself to click Flee because I really want it to be like a purposeful action. The worst thing you can do is misclick Flee, and then you just screw yourself, right? Because all your action points are gone. You have Enchanting Beauty. Also something you should often use. Basically, as soon as you are in a fight with more than 2 people, you should be using, more than 1 person, excuse me, you should be using Enchanting Beauty. Opening on a white line that has a pet, Enchanting Beauty. Enchanting Beauty, one of the best abilities in the game, detaunts everyone around you within 30 feet, causing anybody that you don't damage to do 50% less damage to you for 15 seconds. which is humongous. Great in rank, great in small team fights, great in war bands. If you're not using this often, honestly, I think I would say don't think about it too much. And if you're ever fighting more than one person, just use it. There, of course, are more tactical ways to use this, but if you're just getting started, just get used to pressing it when you're fighting more than one person or more than one thing, even a pet, whatever. We didn't cover this. Sever Blessing. Again, if you're just getting started, don't worry about this too much. It removes a blessing from your enemy. It's really good against certain healers. It's just really good if you know you can basically cleanse a blessing from the enemy that would potentially impact the fight. Again, I don't want to dig too much into that today. Just don't have a lot of time. You want a good rejuvenation potion. I just have some vanquishers here. Drought of Recovery, again, because I'm cheap. And then the third potion you can have is an Absorb potion. So you actually have, again, 3 quote-unquote healing potions, right? 1 is an Absorb, 2 are healing potions. Some people use a recovery over time potions, the pink ones that you'll see here. I just prefer burst heals over extended heals because, at least in my way of playing, I die more to bursty damage than I do like AM damage, right? So dots and stuff. So I use burst heals. 2 AP pots, not as important, honestly. Don't spend a lot of money on AP pots. Like, most of them will get you back to full AP anyways, or at least enough that you can continue the fight. To the point that it wouldn't make a difference. We have Beast Lord here, Mount. We have Throw and Dagger, Shadow Prowler, whatever. Okay, what are we doing? How are we doing? 26 minutes, man. You all got a long video to watch. All right. So let's 5 minutes left. Let's hit a dummy, I guess. And I'll just show some stuff here. So let's, I don't know. Let's go to combat. Let's get behind this dude. We'll put on I don't know. Let's put on like Kiss of Agony. We'll open with a pretty simple finisher here, right? So like we have Kiss of Agony on. Want to make sure that I open immediately with Tainted Positioning and Elixir of Insane Power. So like, all right, so we do Vehement Blades. Like we pop both of those. We knock them down. We press Pierce Armor. You press like Agonizing Wounds. And once you get to 5-stack, pick, Ruthless Assault. So that's like a very simple opener, like something you could do right off the bat. I might have even misclicked in that because I feel like I'm putting some pressure on myself to perform. You guys know what that's like? You know what I'm talking about. You can't, sometimes you're like put on the spot. So we'll do it again. This time I probably won't talk over it because, as you know, when you're trying to it's like when somebody's watching you type, right? If you're screen sharing at your job and somebody's watching you type an email, you can't really type the email as well as you could if nobody's watching. That's kind of how it is when I'm trying to talk over stuff while I do it. So we'll do another example here where I'm not talking, and I'll just show you like a very quick and dirty like Ruthless Assault sort of rotation where you start with the knockdown. Again, there's a few ways to do this. This is just one way. Probably arguably a simpler way than maybe otherwise. So there we go, right, we're going, boom, we hit, boom, and then we pop Ruthless, like, great, and we have our Elixir of Insane Power up. As soon as that's done, we get, we're back in there. And then if we look at, I don't know, how was it? All right, so on that one, we killed the training dummy in less than 11 seconds. Pretty solid 3-second burst, 7,000 damage, 3-second burst, 1,600 damage per second. So this can get up over 8,000 actually pretty easily if you get lucky. It's all about how many critical hits you have. Of course, if you go get that plus 4% critical hit bonus talisman, that helps. Let's do a couple other ones so I can show you a couple more things. So right, like if it's a healer, like all right, I switch to Kiss of Death. I open with Treacherous Assault. If these were off cooldown, I'd use both of those, but let's just pretend they are. Great. Knock down, right? You fucking hit, boom, same thing again, pow, and then you fucking, Ruthless Assault, and you know, that would be that fight. I'm just gonna leave this guy alive so we don't have to spend too many cycles doing this, because it doesn't matter for what I'm trying to show. Another way you could do this opener, a little more challenging, little more difficult. If it's a healer, you know, you could open with Throat Slitter, that sort of thing. But another thing you could do, so let's do like this Enfeebling Strike one. So like, let's say, okay, we're doing it again. You know, I open, right? I very quickly press these two things right as I'm opening, and then I come in and I throw Racking Pains on, right? And we talked about Racking Pains. Racking Pains, huge extended fight ability for big damage over that amount of time. Also really good because of those ailments that they throw on people. So then, you know, after that, after you have Racking Pains, you might throw a Pierce Armor or a Knockdown. Just depends on who you're fighting, right? Depends on what your goal is here. So one of those two are going to come out next, and then you're gonna Ruthless Assault, and then of course you're going to go back to Agonize and Wound, right? So that's kind of the rotation there. This comes off cooldown, right? And I know I'm going slow. I'm going slow on purpose to try to help people, but that's sort of the thing. So let's, you know, we got to end this video. All right, so let's then, you know, let's try to bring together a few different things here. We're about to run out of the liniment anyways. So let's like bring together a few things here. So let's show, you know, maybe a pretty complex. Let's just use this. No one's gonna care if we use this, right? All right. So let's say, all right, you know, we're running up on a Witch Hunter. Okay, I'm gonna switch to, you know, Kiss of Betrayal. I'm ready to drain his AP. I open with Vehement Blades, boom, throw Racking Pains on him, pow, I knock him down or Pierce Armor him there. He's knocked. I open with Ruthless Assault, there it goes. And in this case, like, you know, maybe they're just like little bitch-ass Witch Hunters and I didn't think I needed to use either of these, right? In some cases, right, I'm not saying, and it's hard with these videos because people just make up stuff that you say, right? Like with these globals and stuff, like use your judgment. You know, if you're attacking a target dummy, which is a under-geared Witch Hunter, right? Maybe you don't need these two, right? Because all this is going to do is let your positional abilities hit basically for free for 10 seconds. Like, all right, maybe the guy sucks. You're just going to be behind him anyways, so you don't need to use that right now. And honestly, if the opponent doesn't have a lot of armor, you might not want to use this right away, right? So like these target dummies, like these two abilities, don't really do anything for these target dummies, right? Oh man, I feel so bad making this video so long. Let's now that that's done, hopefully that helps. You know, again, you probably should be thinking through Severed Blessing in these fights. If you're fighting a melee person or range and they're within distance, you know, maybe Sever Limb. Throat Slitter we talked about, Enchanting Beauty, you know, make sure you're throwing that out there. This usually comes within the like rotation of your opener, so right as you're reaching up to Ruthless Assault, your first big burst, you might throw an Enchanting Beauty out. I want to show you one more thing about Ruthless Assault, because I know if I don't, people are going to complain. So we'll go do that. While we're getting back, I'll cover one more ability. This is Agile Escape. Very useful ability. You should be using it almost all the time if you're fighting multiple opponents, or if like a Witch Hunter opens on you and you are not ready to fight yet. This staggers a person for 6 seconds as long as nobody else touches them. So in like a 1v2 fight, you can stagger one person and knock down the other. It actually makes 1v2 fights winnable by being intelligent about your use of this. In fact, you can beat 1v2, 1v3s, assuming the players are like average, if you are using your knockdown, Throat Slitter, Sever Limb, and Agile Escape intelligently. All right, last thing we're going to talk about. Probably still forgot a bunch of crap. So let's respecialize. I'm going to show you one more type of Ruthless Assault build. This is a really good group build. Really useful for big team fights. Like if you're in a war band or a small party, you probably should be using this build. So let me just go ahead and That was weird. I don't know why I did that. Let me just go ahead and grab the things that I need out of this, and then we'll talk about it. All right. Let me see. Did I get everything? Yes. Okay, cool. All right. So we grab Bleeding Edge and On Your Knees. That's the big change here. And we did not grab Heartseeker. So, and we didn't grab Masterful Treachery. So with this Ruthless Assault build, a little different, a little more of a fighting build, if you will. It allows you, and this is where your disrupt ability would be if you wanted to grab that up that tree. I don't even know if I did grab that. Let me make sure I'm not leading you all astray here. Yeah, we grabbed it. It's just not on my skill bar. So that's where that would be. Not going to worry about it now. So with this rotation, honestly, almost exactly the same as before, except you are using On Your Knees instead, and you are using Bleeding Edge instead of Masterful Treachery. Bleeding Edge, hugely, huge potential ability for big damage, especially if you open with On Your Knees instead of Heartseeker. Heartseeker is just a knockdown. On Your Knees does two things with this build. One, it gets you almost to your M1 pretty immediately. And two, for your build up to Ruthless Assault, you will now have 50% increased armor penetration. And then you still have Elixir of Insane Power, so then by the time you use Ruthless Assault, you will have Bleeding Edge and Elixir of Insane Power stacking with one another. So this is huge potential for outplay maneuvers. It gives you a little bit more utility with confusing movements, with honestly not too much damage reduction, especially in extended fights, because remember, this triggers every time you use your finishers, which will probably be pretty often, whereas Masterful Treachery only triggers every time you're coming out of invisibility. Okay. Wow, I feel like that was a lot. That was way longer than I thought it was going to be. This is sort of step one. This is the Ruthless Assault build. We will move into Sacrificial Stab, Witch Brew, maybe that annoying-ass regen build, and maybe something like a City Spec build, which is sort of like the Witch Elf fake AoE build. Hopefully this was helpful. And if it was and you enjoyed it and you appreciate it, and I don't get too much flame, I'll make another one. Take it easy, folks. Bye-bye.